actually had a note about your first job working at a t-shirt shop. I think we're like 16 ish, and or you were, and I remember you worked there. My memory was you worked there about a week. And does that sound about right?
You referred to the mall?
Yeah, you working in a t-shirt shop in the mall for about a week.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, no, it was over the course of a holiday
Okay,
season.
was
I
it?
was just like a part-time. Yeah. Yeah. Now, not to confuse it, selling snow cones in front of a
Yeah, yeah,
t-shirt
yeah, yeah,
shop was slightly different. But no, in that mall, yeah, no, I was holiday season, they were staffing up and I worked a
yeah.
day or two a week just to make some extra holiday
And
money so I
probably
could
meet some
buy
ladies.
presents. Probably was of interest, but
Yeah.
I think my stated purpose was to make a little extra money to buy holiday presents for friends and family.
Yeah. Well, that leads into so shortly in I want to cover, we can talk kind of where you are now, but I know a lot of people they struggle just to get started and what does it look like to, get that first $100,000 in revenue and onwards. We've done a couple talks on the channel about getting to $20,000 in revenue a month and somewhat generically, but just talking about how to get someone from zero to something so that they can start being productive in their business and start creating some type of wealth and security. So when you first started, you were in high school and you were selling snow cones and hot dogs out in front of like Lowe's and Home Depot and then other kind of tourist attractions on the beach. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, at 16, I had a shaved ice machine, or shave ice machine, as people will refer to it. Kind of there's some people who are really particular about how you refer to shave ice, but uh, the reality is we had this machine and it was sitting in storage. And I had heard from a friend who was working at a shave ice cart in front of a Walmart that he was doing a million, he was doing $1,000 a day, which, but he had a couple different locations. They maybe were doing a million plus a year, but his $1,000 a day, but he was an employee. And we talked about it was more than 1,000. It was like a couple of $1,000s a day some days. And I was like, oh my, I was like, I've got this machine.
Yeah.
And so like if he can do $2,000 a day in front of Walmart, I could probably just set up down the street and at least make $100 a day, which would have been great. And that's what I did. And so I literally just went up and down the beach in Panama City Beach, talking to t-shirt shop owners until I found one that would agree and say yes. So I mean, I think learned the first lesson of one of those things like you just like don't go knock on one door, just keep knocking on
Yeah.
doors till someone says yes. And set up for the whole summer. And wasn't getting rich, but I was making $100 a day, and I was sitting on the beach in a lawn chair selling shaved ice to people on the beach, and it was a lovely way to spend my summer.
Yeah, yeah. So, which I always found fascinating. I love telling the story to young people that I talk to that are like asking me for advice, and I'll use the story of you, going and talking to the manager at Lowe's or Home Depot and setting up a hot dog stand, which I worked out. He had the great plan. He got it set up, and then he hired his brother, for $10 an hour to sell them. So it worked out good.
Yeah.
But I think the lessons, well, a couple things. I've always said that you've been really good at spotting opportunities. And I think, not everyone who has a snow cone machine, obviously, not everyone has a snow cone machine sitting in their storage, but it, just because you had the opportunity to do it, not everyone takes advantage of those opportunities.
Mhm.
Any kind of just like thought process or insight on not just that, but just your whole life, seeing opportunities and seeing what could be a good opportunity or a reasonable enough opportunity to pursue. And I'm sure some of those haven't worked out. And maybe you can elaborate on the ones that have worked out and the ones that haven't worked out, or the ones that have versus the ones that haven't, and kind of what you've learned and kind of thoughts on identifying those opportunities.
Sure. Well, a couple of thoughts. One is at a high level, identifying opportunities. It's a muscle. The idea that you can, well, it's a muscle like anything, whether it's like working out or even speaking a language. It's repetition and consistency develops the muscle. And ideally, start young. You're not going to be world class skier if you start at 35. All right, so start young and build this muscle. I love doing this with my children. I don't know if they'll all be entrepreneurs. They're still young, but we have conversations all the time. They can tell you about a P&L and L, and they can
Yeah.
tell you about business because we talk about it. Now, but yeah, so I will say grew up with having the benefit of having entrepreneurial parents. Um, Maybe there's probably some, wiring, everyone's got different personality types. So maybe that there's probably some of that, just kind of the natural wiring of, being analytical and curious. But I would say the one thing that everyone can do is get your reps in. And when it comes to finding good opportunities, what you have is, um, you know, you start to, again, through repetition, and you need feedback loops, and you really need to have this, where you're going in and you're collecting feedback, and you're looking at it, and is this a good opportunity or is it not? And or as Ray Dalio would say, kind of pain plus reflection equals progress.
Mhm.
And so being willing to adopt some of those principles, it could go I could go all day long with Ray Dalio, as you know,
Right.
like these ideas that, pain plus reflection equals progress, having iterative feedback loops, knowing that, like, you're always going to make mistakes, right? And you're always going to be trying to learn from them. And so if you have that long-term view, I'm going to get hundreds of reps in over my life. Um, I'd say then you're going to set yourself up for success. And you can't just say, I tried one thing, it didn't work out. And, I guess I'm not an entrepreneur. And I
Yeah.
guess being wired to be an entrepreneur is also like this wiring of like being willing to fall down and get up, and like just being okay with that, and knowing that you are going to fall down and you're going to fail, and hopefully you learn from it. And if you don't learn from it, you're not doing something right.